You all know home science has 5 major areas: nutrition, textiles and clothing, human development, family resource management, and extension education. And this class, you're going to concentrate on what textiles and clothing is all about. When you say textiles, so you can see a picture of textiles as well as the fabric as well as the constructed garment. Now, textile refers to all items of materials, the finished materials made from fabrics, whereas clothing refers to the various articles of apparel that are used to cover the body. Now, textiles are used in the making of not only clothes but also in the making of curtains, the bedspreads, cushion covers, pillowcases, etc. Whereas clothing refers to the constructed garments or the dresses which are owned by an individual for a certain period of time. Now, the significance of textiles and clothing. We all know clothing is one of the basic necessities of life. It holds the second place next to food. So, some of the importance, clothing is one of the basic necessities. Textiles are used for various purposes in our life. We sit on textiles, which means we sit on the fabric covered sofas. We walk on textiles, which means we walk on the carpets. We sleep on, say for example, on the bedspread. We cover ourselves with a blanket, and so we sleep on and in between the textiles. So textiles are used for various purposes by all of us. We are all the consumers of textiles. Then appropriate, attractive and comfortable clothes, they enhance or boost the confidence of an individual, which means when you know you are rightly clothed for an occasion and when you feel that you look good and comfortable, that gives you a lot of confidence. So that you will forget about yourself, you will be able to concentrate on what is happening around you. Now, clothing protects us from sun, wind, rain and all the extremes of climate. The right choice of clothes and accessories, it enhances the personality of an individual. See some of the uses of textiles as the cushion covers, curtains and the fabric covered sofas. The hand towels, dish towels and bath towels. Clothing which enhances your personality. Now, coming to the different aspects of textiles and clothing, you need to understand certain terminologies and processes. The first one is the fiber. Fiber is the fundamental unit of a fabric. When you take a piece of cloth, fabric is nothing but a piece of cloth, and view it through a magnifying glass, you will find 2 sets of yarns running vertically and horizontally. And when you remove one thread and untwist it, you will find few fine threads coming apart. These fine threads are called fibers. Now, do you understand the meaning of the first sentence? Fiber is the fundamental unit of the fabric because from the fiber you make the yarn, from the yarn you get the fabric. Now, fibers are broadly classified as natural and synthetic. Natural fibers are taken from plant source and animal kingdom. Now, the plant fibers are otherwise called cellulosic fibers. Now, some of the commonly known cellulosic fibers are cotton, linen, jute, hemp, ramie, etc. You also have the fibers like coir, which is taken from coconut, pinna fiber is taken from pineapple leaves, and banana fiber taken from the sheath of banana. The next one, the animal fibers are otherwise called protein fibers. Again, commonly known animal fibers are wool, that is taken from sheep, silk taken from silkworm, and llama, vicuna, guanaco, they are all taken from camel's hair, and fur, as you all know, it's very commonly used in the making of stuffed toys. It is taken from rabbit. The next one is a synthetic filament category. Some of the commonly known fibers are nylon, polyester, orlon, dacron, rayon, dinyl, vignon, etc. Now, you can see the fiber here: cotton and linen, wool and silk, and a synthetic fabric. These are some of the uses of different fibers. Now, coming to the first process, spinning. Spinning is the process which involves the twisting of 2 or more fibers together. So, when you twist 2 or more fibers together in a particular direction, you get a long length of thread, and that thread is known as a yarn. And yarns are broadly classified into 2, simple yarns and complex yarns. Now, simple yarns, you have 3 categories. When few fibers are twisted and it is made into a long thread, it is called a single yarn. Now, 2 single yarns, when they are twisted together, what you get is a ply yarn. When 2 such ply yarns are twisted together, you get a cable, and cable yarns are mostly the thicker and stronger and tougher yarns used for various purposes. Now coming to the complex yarns. Complex yarns are otherwise called fancy yarns or novelty yarns. Now complex yarns, they normally have three components. The first one is called the core yarn, around which a second yarn, which is called the effect yarn, is twisted. And this second yarn is twisted in a specific fashion that gives a special effect to the yarn. And that is why you call the second yarn as the effect yarn. Now the third set of yarn, known as the binder, is used to keep the core and effect in place. That is the purpose of the binder yarn. Now examples of fancy yarns are slug, flake, spiral, rattan, buckle and nub yarns. And these fancy yarns, they give different texture to the fabric. All the simple yarns will make a flat piece of fabric, whereas the fancy yarns give you a special effect, a rough and tough effect, some fancy effect. So many of the fancy fabrics which are available in the market today are a product of fancy yarns. You can see the yarns here. The next process is, now we saw the fiber, which is the fundamental unit of the fabric, which is twisted by means of a process called spinning. It is made into a yarn, and now you need to make a fabric. When two sets of yarns are interlaced with each other at right angles, that process is called weaving. As I told you earlier, when you view a fabric through a magnifying glass, I told you, you will find two sets of yarns running vertically and horizontally. And when you normally look at a fabric, you will find two sides of the fabric being finished already, which means you do not need to fold and stitch. When you take your dupatta or the sari, you will find these two areas, these two corners already finished. So this edge of the fabric is known as the selvage. Whereas you fold and stitch this part, the crosswise yarns, because if you don't do that, the yarns may come apart. And so the already finished sides of the fabric are known as selvages. The yarns which run parallel to the selvage are known as the warp yarns. The yarns that run perpendicular to the selvage are known as the weft yarns or filling yarns. The weaving is classified into two types: basic weaves and fancy weaves. Now basic weaves are mostly three: plain, twill and satin. Now plain weave is something which is normally used as a blouse piece or a handkerchief, etc. It's a normal plain piece of fabric, a flat piece of fabric. And the next one is the twill weave, which the characteristic feature of the twill weave is the diagonal lines that run across the fabric. And these diagonal lines, they give more strength to the fabric, and so twill weave is supposed to be the strongest of the basic weaves. And you will find these diagonal patterns on the denim cloth, that is the jeans material, and in most of the school uniforms, because they need to be very tough and durable. Then the third one is the satin weave. All of you must be very familiar with the satin fabric. One common example is the satin ribbon, which we normally use to wrap the gifts. So this satin fabric, the speciality of the satin fabric is the luster. Satin fabrics are very lustrous and shiny, and they are used in the making of beautiful party wear, the evening gowns and party wears. And the fancy weaves are pile, dobby and jacquard. Now the fancy weaves normally, in contrast to the plain weaves, they give a feeling of depth and three-dimensional effect to the fabrics. For example, if you take a pile weave, that weave creates small loops on the fabric surface. That is normally seen in the turkey towels or terry towels. I hope all of you have seen the small loops on the surface, and they give the softness and they are responsible for absorbency. That is why they are normally used as bath towels, where they are expected to absorb the moisture from the body. And so pile weave, again it produces fabric which has a depth and three-dimensional effect. The second one is a dobby weave. Dobby weave is a fancy weave, but though the weave employs a lot of structures in the loom, the design that is created out of a dobby weave is very small. And one popular design is called small diamond pattern with the eye in the center, and that is called the bird's eye pattern, which is normally seen in the men's shirting fabrics and the tie fabrics. The third one is the jacquard weave, the most popular weave, which the setting up of the jacquard loom itself takes a few weeks to few months, several months also. And so jacquard woven fabrics are very expensive. Common examples are brocades, which are nothing but the silk saris with heavy borders and pallu, with intricate designs on the body and border and pallu. The next one, you see the fabrics here. The first on to my left right is the figure weave or the fancy weave, and these are the examples of basic weaves. Now when the fabric comes out of the loom, you all know loom is the machinery that is used in the making of fabrics. You know the two types of looms, hand looms and power looms. Now when the fabric comes out of the loom, the fabric is not ready to take a place in the showroom, because consumers will not be happy to buy a fabric because the fabric looks very dull, unattractive with lot of dirt and stains due to human handling in the previous processes of spinning and weaving. And so it has to be given a facelift. Just as you do bleaching to your face, which makes the face brighter and whiter, a finishing treatment is definitely needed for the fabric to make it more brighter and whiter. So what is a finish now? A finish is any treatment that is given to the fiber, yarn or fabric to enhance its appearance and to improve its serviceability and durability. And one common example for a finish is bleaching. Bleaching is a process which makes any fabric more brighter and whiter. And finishes are commonly divided into two: basic finishes and functional finishes or special purpose finishes. The basic finishes are all given to almost all type of fibers, yarns or fabrics as a preparatory treatment for future dyeing and printing. So when basic finishes are given, they give more dye absorbability property also when the dyeing process is carried out. And so some of the basic finishes are singeing, bleaching, mercerizing and calendering. Singeing is a process which burns off the surface lint, the small threads in the surface, and that guarantees a smooth fabric surface. The second one is bleaching, that guarantees a brighter and whiter fabric. Third one, mercerizing, is a finish, again a preparatory finish that imparts luster, improves strength, and most importantly that improves the dye absorbability property of that particular fiber. The last one is the calendering. Calendering is nothing but an industrial ironing process which smooths out all the wrinkles or creases from the surface of the fabric, that gives an ironed, crisp look to the fabric. You can see the example of a beautiful white wedding gown, which is a product of Screw. Such a fabric will repel the water, and that fabric is used in the making of umbrella or raincoats. The next one is the fireproof or flame retardant finish. When this finish is given to a fabric, the resultant fabric is used in the making of firefighters' garments, and that delays the inflammability of the fabric. So in those few minutes, the firefighters will plunge into the fire and save life and property. So you don't misunderstand the meaning of the term fireproof. That does not mean that the fabric will not catch fire at all. No, it will catch fire, but the process will be delayed, okay, by few minutes. And those few minutes are most valuable for the firefighters to save life and property. Those waterproof fabrics. You can see the raincoat and umbrella. Next step is, when the finishing treatment is over, again the process, our journey is not yet over. When you wear a white garment once in a while, that gives a very pleasurable experience. Okay, you feel like an angel. But when you are made to wear a white garment, white garment every day, definitely the angels will turn to ghosts. You will not feel like wearing it every day. The life becomes more dull and boring. Because human eyes always, they want some colorful appeal. So definitely we need to apply some color to the fabrics. So that is the next stage of our journey from fiber to fabric. Now dyeing is nothing but the application of color to the fiber, yarn or fabric by having the coloring matter in the form of a solution. And dyes are broadly classified into two categories. Now before we see the classification, I want you to understand few important terminologies which are very much needed or vital in the understanding of this unit. Now color fastness is the most important term. What does it mean? Color fastness is the ability of the fiber, yarn or fabric to retain the color for a longer period of time. It is the ability of the fiber, yarn or fabric to retain the color for a longer period of time, which means there should not be loss of color. There should not be any loss of color. Now loss of color, when it happens due to exposure to sunlight, that is known as fading. Suppose when you fold and dry a garment, the side of the garment which is exposed to sunlight, that portion alone will be dull. In the evening when you pick up the garment from the clothesline, one half of the garment will look dull compared to the rest, because that portion has lost color due to exposure to direct sunlight. When such a loss occurs, you call that as fading. And some occasions you will find the bucket of water, when you dip a blue colored sari petticoat, you will find the bucket of water turning to blue color. That means the color runs along with the rinsing water in the laundering process. So that process is called bleeding. When there is loss of color during laundering along with the rinsing water, you call that as bleeding. The next one is crocking. Crocking is again loss of color due to friction, and this is commonly seen in children's clothing. Children are very active, not like you people. They are very active. They play outdoors. They spend a lot of time in the parks playing the seesaw, jungle gym, swing, slide, etc. So when they are engaged in active play, definitely their garment is always rubbing against some other surface. So wherever it is rubbed, especially the seat area and the knees, those areas, the fabric will lose its color. Okay, so that loss of color due to rubbing against another surface or due to friction is known as crocking. The next one is the classification of dyes. Dyes are broadly classified into two categories: natural dyes and synthetic dyes. Now, natural dyes are taken from the natural sources: plant source, animal source and mineral source. Now, the dyes that are taken from natural source, the vegetables are, some of the examples are fustic, sumac, alizarin, logwood, indigo and the commonly known henna. The henna, when you keep on your fingers, that beautifies your finger, giving a beautiful color. The same thing happens to the fabrics also. So these are some of the examples of natural dyes taken from plants. Now some type colors are obtained from species of fish and insects. And examples are cochineal, squid sepia, lac and Tyrian purple. Now the dyes taken from mineral source, that is from the rocks. Examples are Prussian blue, chrome yellow and iron buff. The synthetic dyes, so these three come under the natural category. The next one is the synthetic dyes. They are a combination of chemicals. They don't have any natural element at all. Now examples are acid dyes, which are used in the dyeing of wool. Basic dyes, they give very brilliant full colors to silk fabrics, silk sarees. Direct dyes are used in the coloring of cotton, linen and rayons. And developed vat and naphthol dyes are meant for coloring all the synthetic filaments. Next stage is printing. Why is printing important? When the dyeing process is over, you have beautiful colors around you, but everybody will be clothed in a solid color, a plain colored garments. There is no print, no design at all. Again, human beings are not satisfied. So as a consumer, the manufacturer should do something. He has to do something to attract you as a consumer. So as a consumer, we all expect something more decoration. So that decoration is given in the form of printing. So what is printing? Printing is the application of color decoration to the surface of the fabric. So you need a fabric. All along we were discussing that whether it be finishing or dyeing, it is applied to the fiber, yarn or fabric. Whereas printing is the process which is applied only on the surface of the fabric as a means of decorating the surface. Now hand printing methods are, some of the hand printing methods are block printing, which is the age-old printing method. You can even use, as school children, you must have used the vegetables as a block to print beautiful designs in the making of greeting cards. So something like that, the block printing makes use of wooden blocks which are carved with a specific design. Stencil print, tie and dye and batik are some of the examples of basic or hand printing methods. The next one is the machine printing techniques. Examples are roller, screen and duplex. So here ends our journey from fiber to fabric. We saw how a fiber is converted into a fabric through processes like spinning, weaving, finishing, dyeing and printing. Now when the fabric is ready in the market, we need to become very intelligent as a consumer to be a better buyer. And so here are some of the tips to make you or to help you in the selection of fabrics. You can see a printed saree. So here are some of the factors that influence the selection of clothes. So when you want to go for purchase, you need to remember some of these factors at least to be a better buyer. The first one is the family income. Family income and the size of the family go hand in hand. They go together always. Now say for example, let us take two families, family A and family B. Both have the same income. Okay, and family A has parents and 2 children, whereas family B has parents and 4 children. And clothing allowance, I want you to understand the meaning of this term. What is clothing allowance? Clothing allowance is the amount of money allotted to every individual in the family towards the purchase of clothes. So that is known as clothing allowance. So the family A and B with the same similar income, but family A 2 plus 2, family B 2 plus 4. So the size of the family is more or it's bigger in family B. So the clothing allowance enjoyed by family A will be more compared to family B because the same income is divided among more persons. So that is how family income and size of the family, they influence the selection of clothes or the purchase. And place indicates rural or urban, where you live. People who live in the rural areas, they don't spend more on clothes because even if they go for a function or for a marriage, they don't need to have very special clothes. They go in the ordinary clothes and they are accepted like that in their society. Whereas an urban family spends more on clothes because they are socially more active. They go for parties, weddings and for places of interest and entertainment areas, theatres, etc. And so they need more amount of clothes and they spend more on clothes. So that is how the place where you live, that affects your spending pattern. Then age of the family members. The family which has small children will spend lesser compared to a family with teenage children, because teenage children, do I need to say all of you come from such families and you know how much money you will be spending towards the purchase of your clothes and accessories. Okay, accessories take up a lot of money compared to clothes. The next one is gender. The family with 2 boys and a family with 2 girls. Which family do you think will spend more? Definitely the family with boys, because all the clothes, whether it be branded clothing or accessories, shoes, belt, hat, etc. Boys' clothing and accessories are more expensive compared to girls. Girls may have a broader wardrobe. They may have many number of clothes and accessories, but they are all available at a convenient cost, whereas boys' branded items are very expensive, and so a family with boy children, they spend a lot compared to a family with girl children. Then climate. When you live on plains, a place like Madurai, you need not spend more on clothes because Madurai is a very warm place. You need to wear cool clothes like cotton to keep you cool. Whereas when people living in hilly areas like Kodaikanal, they will spend more on clothes because wool fabrics are more expensive compared to cotton. And when you live in a hilly area, you will need to have several sets of clothing also. Imagine getting wet in a hilly area. When your sweater gets wet, it will not dry easily also. So you need several sets of sweaters which are expensive compared to a cotton dress. And so the climate condition of the place where you live also plays a major role in the fabric selection. Then occupation. Very easy to understand. White collar job are the professionals like lawyers, doctors, engineers and professors. They spend more on clothes. Their family also spends more on clothes because clothing is one way of showcasing their wealth, or they attach a prestige tag to the clothes. Whereas people coming from laborers family, they spend less on clothes. They don't attach more importance to clothing. The socio-economic status. People coming from the highest strata of the society, they will have more number of clothes and more expensive clothes compared to people coming from middle income and low income families. Then customs and traditions. India is rich in their customs and traditions. We have so many customs and rituals starting from birth to the death of an individual. So everything incurs expenditure, definitely clothing expenditure. So when a baby is born, when you go and visit the family, definitely you buy some clothes to the small child. And so everything, all the customs and tradition, they incur expenditure, clothing expenditure especially. And quality of the material, it's very easy to understand. When the quality is high, you need to pay more price compared to low quality material, which is always very cheap. Pricing. Price also is closely related to the quality. When the quality goes high, the price also goes up. When the quality goes down, the price also becomes very affordable. So these factors definitely play a major role in the selection of clothes. So now that you have finished the selection of, understood the factors, we will have to see the next part of the textiles and clothing, which is how are you going to plan your wardrobe and how are you going to become an intelligent buyer. So the next part of the unit is wardrobe planning. So what is a wardrobe? Normally people have a misconception thinking that wardrobe is a cupboard where we store clothes. It is not. Wardrobe is not a cupboard. Wardrobe is collection of clothes and accessories used by an individual for a certain period of time. Okay, so why do we say certain period of time? Because whatever you used 5 years back when you were in the school, are you able to use it now? No. So definitely the clothes which we possess in our wardrobe is used by an individual only for a certain period of time. Either it gets worn out or you outgrow those garments. So when you grow, definitely you have to discard those items and keep on buying the new items which is fitting to your personality. You can see a wardrobe with clothes as well as the accessories. Now some of the characteristics of wardrobe planning which you should keep in mind before you plan a wardrobe for yourself. The first one is there should be sufficient variety of garments for your day-to-day requirements. A day-to-day requirement, when I say, it varies from an individual to individual. A person who is very inactive may not need many types of clothes compared to a person who is very active. A person may be an NCC cadet or a player, or she may be a player or a swimmer. Then definitely you will need NCC uniform, your play clothes, okay, sports clothes, as well as the swimsuit when you go for swimming. And if you go for a dance class, again you need the dance costumes. You cannot do all these activities wearing a single garment. Your casual wear is not meant for all these activities. So when you lead an active life, definitely you will need more number of clothes. So a wardrobe should have sufficient amount of clothes for day-to-day use. Secondly, there should be sufficient number of accessories to go with the garments. When I say accessories, it not only means, accessory means all the extra fittings that are used apart from clothing to enhance your personality, right from the hair clip, hairband, your bindis, decorative bindis, your jewelry, watch, shoes, handbag, hat, etc. So these are some of the accessories which are used along with clothing to improve our appearance. So the sufficient number of accessories, when I say, if you are a sports person, one common accessory is the sweat band. Sweat band that is used to absorb your sweat during play, and the shoes and socks, and a belt or a hat. These are all part of your sports accessories. The next one is basic color scheme for mix and match. Your wardrobe should have a basic color scheme. When I say that, it normally suits the Western culture. There, they won't have many number of clothes, but they will appear to be wearing many sets of clothes. How? Because they follow this tip, color mix and match. What does it mean? They may have just 3 or 4 skirts or jeans. The tops may be few. So when they wear a brown colored jean with a cream colored top on day 1, the same brown jean will be worn the next day with a pink colored top. So the entire thing outfit looks different. So that is how they create more variety through mix and match, which means you will be able to mix and match, wear this top with some other skirt or a pant or a jeans. The last one is appropriate, attractive and comfortable garments. Whatever garments you have in your wardrobe, make sure that they are appropriate for the occasion. Silk saree in a workplace, wearing a silk skirt to the college will not look appropriate. A silk skirt is meant for attending parties and weddings. So appropriateness of the garment is very, very important consideration while planning a wardrobe. Secondly, whatever garment you purchase, you need to look attractive in that particular garment. So appropriateness, attractive, and ultimately, but importantly, you need to feel comfortable. A garment who's too tight will restrict your movements. You will not feel comfortable. A garment that is too loose also will make you appear shabby. And so, a garment that is well-fitting, guarantees the comfort, and comfort guarantees your confidence. So appropriateness, attractive and comfortable clothes should be there in your wardrobe. So these are some of the characteristics of wardrobe planning. Then there are a few steps in wardrobe planning. We shall see that one by one. The first one is clothing inventory. So what does it mean? Clothing inventory is nothing but analysis of each one's clothing to check whether it is in good condition or worn out or needs to be repaired. So clothing inventory is nothing but just open your wardrobe, pull out all the garments, categorize all the garments according to your to the condition or according to the use also. For example, categorize. Category 1 will be casual wear, the next category will be party wear, the next one night wear, sports wear, inner garments, handkerchiefs, other accessories, towels, etc. So when you categorize your garments like this, you will find few garments which need to be repaired, some worn out clothes, okay? The small repair here and there, a button missing or a zipper has to be replaced, whatever it is. The next category will be the garments which are worn out, which cannot be used thereafter at all. Okay, you have to simply discard them. So when you discard few garments, ultimately at the end of clothing inventory, you will arrive at a list of items that needs to be purchased. So that is the end point of clothing inventory. You will arrive at a list of items that need to be purchased. And the next step is spending plan. Spending plan is nothing but, it is called budget. It is otherwise called budget. So it is nothing but keeping record of what you purchased, when you purchased, how much you paid, and what is the cost of upkeep or maintenance cost. So when you make a note of all these things, that comes handy reference for future spending. So spending plan is making note of whatever purchase you did earlier, which could be referred for future use. The next one is the shopping skill. Shopping skill is, you need to be, if you want to become a better buyer, intelligent buyer, you need to go for shopping always with the list of items required for purchase. Again, the list of items should be arranged in the order of priority. So whatever is the most needed one, and the least needed one, which could be postponed for the next purchase, should form the bottom of the shopping list. And when the golden rule you need to remember while shopping is avoid impulse buying. What does it mean? You go with 500 rupees in hand to get a birthday dress for you, and on the way you saw a beautiful shoe, the same color which you wanted, and you spent 250 rupees towards that. And when you finally enter the textile showroom to buy your birthday garment, you have only 250 rupees in hand. So that purchase of shoe is the outcome of impulse buying. So you didn't have that in your mind, you didn't have the money also, but you saw the shoe through window shopping, you entered and wasted your money on that. Now you don't have money to purchase the product which you wanted. Okay, so the golden rule to remember is avoid impulse buying. Go with the shopping list and purchase only the items you need the most. The next is comparison shopping. Again, if you want to spend the correct money for your garment, definitely you need to compare the different stores in the city. And when you visit various shops, you will know which shop has a wider selection and for a lesser price. A shop which has a broad selection and which has least expensive garments should be considered for the shopping. Proper fit and appropriateness of a garment for the occasion are the chief considerations in successful buying of clothes. The next one is accessories. Accessories, as I told you earlier, is all the extra fittings which are used by an individual apart from clothing to enhance their appearance or to beautify your look. Some of the accessories that are used are the scarves. So silk is the commonly known most popular material for the making of scarf, and the color of the scarf can either tone or contrast with the background garment. It can be either matching or be contrasting to your garment. The next one is the handbags. Handbags are mostly loved by all the ladies, and the handbags, they can be very delicate if you use it for special occasions or for parties or weddings, because you'll be using them for a few hours. Whereas when you want to use the handbag to your workplace, take it to your workplace, make sure that a sturdy, tough and washable handbag is the best one. A washable handbag is the right choice for workplace, whereas a delicate handbag made of silk is the right choice for special occasions. The next one is the trimmings. Trimmings are all the edge decorations in a garment. So the buttons of the right size and color, they will add more beauty to the garment. And the embroidery which is used at the bottom of the skirt or the pant or the neckline or the sleeve, they normally give a delicate appearance to the individual. You can see the buttons. Now the next one is the jewelry. Jewelry is used for party and marriages as it gives a very sophisticated appearance. When they make you more beautiful and appear more delicate and sophisticated, they will be the wrong choice for the workplace. They will look out of place when they are used for your workplace, whether it be college or an office or elsewhere. The next one is the hats. Hats are some of the one of the accessories which are used by few people. Mostly the western wear will go well with the hat. And here are some of the hats. They should match the dress. They give a very stylish look to the person. So with that, we have come to the end of wardrobe planning. I hope you have a good idea of how we started our journey from fiber, how it got ended with the printed material saree, and then you understood all the factors which are involved in the selection of clothes. Then now you all are experts in making or planning a wardrobe and how to become a better buyer with all the clothes and accessories in hand.